Mom, I'm going out to eat with Lucas and Ben today, so you'll be staying alone at home.
Well, okay.
I'm going to keep things simple for you. It's the considerate thing to do if it's just you. It won't take much time.
Thank you for understanding. Honestly, it'll be easier if no one else is here.
You're stubborn. You kind of want to come with us.
But I won't think too much about it, so don't worry. Just go and enjoy.
You're not cute.
Her response was cold, and she didn't seem happy, and she headed for the front door. If I don't come along, you might have thought I wanted to look lonely, but honestly, I don't feel lonely at all. After 10 years of living together, you'd know I'm not the type to get like that. I mean, I don't actively try to seem cute in front of my daughter-in-law, but anyway. I'm Sarah, a 70-year-old housewife, and my husband passed away when our son, Lucas, was in 2nd grade. I never thought my husband, who always took pride in his health and fitness, would die so young. At the time of his death, he was the CEO of a company and had built up some savings, so we never faced financial difficulties, and I could keep things running smoothly. The year Lucas graduated from college, he married his girlfriend Emma, whom he'd been with since their university days. They moved out, found their own place, and started their life together. They also got the first son, Ben. I lived alone after that, but I never felt lonely. Over time, I even found that living on my own suited me. The freedom became something I appreciated. But, to be honest, I never really got along with Emma from the start. During that time, there was one visit that really stuck with me. I wondered if all young people these days were like this. Emma came over to my house for the first time, gave a slight nod of her head, and then casually walked in and said,
"Can I get something to drink, Sarah? I'm a guest, after all."
The first time she came over, I served her iced tea. She looked at it and said,
"At least offer coffee."
She laughed, saying something about how she didn't want anything but coffee. Lucas laughed too, saying,
"Come on, Mom. You don't care as you're just a housewife."
Lucas had been such a sweet boy when he was little, but things began to change once he got into middle school. One of his new friends came from a single-parent household, and he thought it was really cool that her mom was a successful career woman. She balanced work and home. In comparison, I was just doing housework. I seemed lazy to him.
"You seemed living simply, as you just live off the money my dad left us without working."
How can you say that? We are different from other families. There are plenty of women out there who work and are not single moms. On the other hand, there are single moms who don't work. Back when Emma was in elementary school, I thought he appreciated having me around all the time. I thought it made him happy, but maybe that was just a one-time thing. I knew middle school could be a time when kids are easily influenced by others, but I figured he'd grow up and start thinking for himself more.
"Mom, I know the saying, if you don't work, you don't eat."
I get that, but what exactly are you trying to say? Why do you assume I do nothing all day? I don't just sit around doing nothing. I take care of the house every day. I don't think I've ever cut corners on cleaning laundry or cooking. The reason you live comfortably every day is because I take care of the house.
That's just what all moms do. Don't be proud about that.
Just because I'm your parent, it doesn't mean it's natural for someone to take care of everything for you.
I wonder what it means to be a parent doing only housework.
When he entered high school, he started thinking like this. Who or what influenced him? I wish his dad was still here, but there's no point in saying that now. The person who ended up advising my son was Mr. Johns, my husband's former colleague. He's now the CEO of my husband's old company. Mr. Johns also gave advice to my eldest son after my husband passed away. He supported me and provided guidance. My son, who was close to Mr. John, seemed relieved to have someone to look up to and even stopped talking from the upper position. Eventually, my son started saying,
"Well, if a successful person like Mr. John says it's good, then it must be."
I was a bit concerned, wondering my son listens to him as Mr. Johns as the president of a company. It was a little surprising that he didn't want my opinion anymore, but I was glad he has someone to look up to who could guide him. After that, my eldest son started working hard, studied hard, graduated from college, and went straight to work for Mr. John's company. I was honestly proud that my son got a job at such a great company, but I didn't expect him to get married right after graduation. Still, I thought he'd continue to grow, especially after becoming a father. My daughter-in-law Emma had always been a stay-at-home mom, just like me. When I was a homemaker, he has judged me for not having a job, but he didn't judge Emma. I thought it would be best not to interfere too much with each other. But before he started to enter middle school, my son and Emma asked if they could move in with me. They said the cost of private school entrance exams for their son was getting too expensive. I wondered if they just want to live rent-free. It wasn't a big deal for me. I had a spare room anyway. When I talked to Mr. Johns about it, he told me that my son was probably worried about me living alone. It made me happy when he told me that my son thought of me as the strong woman who raised him all on her own. Even though my son didn't say that directly, I was grateful for the opinion, so I agreed to have them move in. At the same time we moved in together, Emma started working part-time, 3 days a week from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. They needed the extra money to send my grandson to a good school. I thought that was a great thing. But since we started living together, Emma has barely done any housework. At first she helped out a little, but over time she stopped doing most of it.
My mother wasn't working, so she needed to help out around the house too, or at least that's how I feel.
I understand that Emma works part-time, but I don't think that means she can't do housework on the days or hours she's not working.
I know that stay-at-home moms might not get this.
When she's at home, she just sits in the living room doing nothing. I'm a bit of a neat freak, so if I see something out of place, I clean it up. That might be why Emma has stopped doing the cleaning altogether. But at the end of the day, if I want it done, I have to do it myself. My eldest son didn't even say anything to his wife, who had come to think that I would do it, but instead told her to do the same thing.
We lived with you, so you should do the housework. You don't have anything else to do anyway, so that's fine. It's good exercise, right?
How can you say that? I don't hate doing housework. It feels good to see things clean, and I love cleaning and doing laundry. Also, I like cooking in a variety of ways, and I'm alone. Even when I was living there, I almost never went out to eat. I just cooked what I wanted, when I wanted, and how I wanted, so I thought it was fun. But even though we lived together, I only had enough for myself. It was my fault that I had even thought about making it, but I was completely taken for granted. So, when I heard that my eldest son's family was going out to eat, I was so happy. However, if I continued to live like that, my grandchildren followed their parents' footsteps and thought the housework as my job. My grandson forgot to put in the laundry like the gymnastics drills they use at school, and they just put them out the night before and say they'll use them the next day. He keeps ordering me about lunch. After a few years of living together, I realized that it was normal for my daughter-in-law to wake up almost noon when she didn't have a part-time job.
Since I was so active on social media yesterday, I'm lacking sleep.
She's sleeping until noon, and I wonder what's wrong with my lack of sleep, but it's bothersome, so I don't say anything back. So my grandson graduated from university this year, and like his father, he started working at Mr. John's company. I'll be 70 this year too. Even though I would rather be taken care of than take care of my eldest son and his wife, I have no desire to be taken care of by my eldest son's wife. If possible, I have a strong desire to live alone for the rest of my life.
What's the news? I just got a call from Dad, and the president of Smart Company will be here after 30 minutes.
The president of our company will be here?
Yes, anyway, he's going to meet the chairman here.
Chairman? Is there a chairman in our company?
I've heard from my father that there was a chairman in our company. He doesn't show his face in the company, but the management side and things have only been overseen by the chairman. Only seniors were meeting, so Dad didn't know anything about it.
So why does the chairman come to our house?
This is it. Of course, your father will be the president.
The current president will become the next chairman, and my father will be the president.
I listened to what my daughter-in-law and grandchild had to say. I wondered why this was happening. My eldest son is now 45 years old and is no longer the owner. He has not even become a section manager.
Because the company was originally his father's company, so he should take over it.
I mean, I'm going to be the president's son or something like that.
If that happens, we'll just throw this away and live in a tower apartment.
Isn't this a bit too much of a story? The world doesn't move in such a convenient way. Let's see a little more.
I'll change my clothes, so Mom will clean up the room in the meantime.
I think the room is tidy.
Clean it even more, Grandma.
This child is no good after all. I am also a failure in raising children, but this grandson is even more than that. What he says and does on a daily basis is really important.
What kind of person is the chairman? Meeting him means that I am also a member of the executive ranks.
My grandson is all excited and wonders if that's the case. I repeat in my heart that the chairman is me. I don't know, but this is probably what the wise says. Actually, the company my sons work for was originally a company I started, and my husband was an employee who applied for the company when I started it. I studied business management in college and realized that I had the foundation to build a company when I was in college. When I graduated, I started my own company. My husband was working at another company, but my parents, who are now quite old and exhausted, had always supported me as I had wanted to start my own business. But when my husband applied, he was an employee. When I asked if they were okay with being a small company with only a few people, he answered that he had hope that we could grow the company together. I started the company 40 years ago when the internet was not yet widespread. Instead of looking for information on the internet, I research it myself, go to the producers, and check it out with my own eyes. I collect information by hand. Since I was in college, I have been visiting and talking directly with the people who produce these products, so that when I start my own company in the future, I will be dealing with all kinds of products, from outdated ornaments to tableware and food items. I was able to start a business as soon as I graduated, and I saved up the money by working part-time during my university days. But my parents also gave me a little help, so I have to work hard to pay it back. My husband sympathized with my ideals and worked hard in his spare time to work. When I asked him if this was any different from his previous company, he replied that the job was completely different. My husband replied with a laugh that no matter how hard I tried, I was always forced to do work, and no matter how hard I tried, I was criticized as incompetent if I couldn't complete it on time. It didn't take long for me to get married a year later, and the following year I gave birth to my son, but my parents, who were on their way to the hospital to see me after I gave birth, were involved in an accident and died. Please, always support me. The sudden disappearance of my parents from this world is an unbearable sadness for me. I feel overwhelmed by the pain of raising a child for the first time and losing my parents. My husband's parents live in the countryside. My brother and his wife live together, and I have 2 young children, so I can't really rely on in-laws. The fact that my son's birthday is also the anniversary of my parents' death was a painful reality for me. I was so busy that I was exhausted from having to worry about having no one to rely on, and my child crying at night. So my husband took me to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with autonomic dysfunction. I was in no condition to continue working, so when I found out about the company, I entrusted my husband with the position of president. After that, with my husband's encouragement and cooperation, such as babysitting, I went to the hospital and I gradually recovered. I have never talked to my son about it. Even though my parents had an accident, I didn't want him to know that I was mentally ill because I was stuck trying to raise a child, and I didn't want my child to think it was his fault. Thanks to my husband's hard work, the company was expanding rapidly, and I had no idea who the president was, but as I recovered, I contacted the producers I have been working with and realized that we had a relationship of trust. Everyone I helped with was worried about me, and they were very happy when I contacted them, which made me very happy and encouraged me. By the time my eldest son entered elementary school, I was almost completely recovered, and I was able to work little by little. Although I hadn't returned to a full-time position, my husband and I would talk about various things related to the company and decide on a direction. And just when I thought it was time to return, this time my husband passed away. At the time, when I was completely crushed, Mr. Johns, who had been my husband's right-hand man and devoted himself to the company, encouraged me to return to the company as president. But my husband was gone. Unfortunately, if I go back to work, I'll be away from home most of the time. My eldest son is still in 2nd grade at elementary school, and I'm worried about him if I don't come home until late at night. I could have asked someone for help, but as a parent myself, I wanted to be by his side. So I asked Mr. John to become the company's president while I continued working as chairman. Naturally, I did enough work to justify my income, so raising the children was never a problem. I was able to do this because my husband left me money and I received dividends from the company's stock that I owned. With that additional income, the company continued to grow steadily, even though I wasn't actively working back then. However, since we were still a young company, I thought it would be better to have just one person who graduated from the company. I discuss and decide on the direction of management with Mr. Johns, but basically my role is that of an advisor to the company. This was over 30 years ago, so working from home was unusual. Phones, or cell phones, weren't commonplace yet, so my eldest son probably thought I wasn't doing any work because I was always at home. At the time, I even said I worked from home, but it probably sounded like a random excuse. Then, about 30 minutes later, my eldest son came to the house with Mr. Johns. He looked at me and said,
"Don't show your face here. This isn't a place for housewives to be seen." "Hey, what are you talking about? The chairman is here too, isn't he? Are you trying to align me with the chairman, whom only the executives know? Which means—"
That means one of us will be the next company president, right?
His wife interjected, and Mr. Johns looked even more surprised. If there was a hole, I'd like to hide in it. It's been a long time, even though we still meet remotely.
"I appreciate you always thinking about the company. The business plan you sent me recently was very helpful, Chairman."
We live in a very convenient world now. I can handle everything through computer communication without needing to use the phone. I can greet customers without visiting them, and information is available online. It's so convenient that sometimes I miss the days when my husband and I used to visit producers and greet them personally. My eldest sons never set foot in my office. They probably don't even know I own a computer. I'm already 70 years old and think it's time to retire.
"Our company stands because of this incredible chairman."
After all, you are our company's founder.
"So, I haven't mentioned this until now because of the transition in chairmanship, but actually Mrs. Sarah is the founder of our company and the current chairman."
Mother is the founder of the company?
"Grandmother is not a housekeeper? Who are you talking about? Did you all treat chairman that way?"
Mr. Johns stared at him, and my son became quiet.
"I didn't know that. If I had known, we would have been too."
If I had known, I would have valued her even more.
I didn't like that you treat me better because of chairman. Parents who have nothing are just a housekeeper? I'm so disappointed in you. I asked Mr. Johns to come here with me today to fire Lucas and Ben from our company. The eldest son is the son of the former company president, and he is saying that the current company president, Mr. Johns, is also paying attention to him. My grandson, who was taking the job, was still in his first year at the company, but following his father's example, he used to verbally abuse his superiors without any hesitation. At my suggestion, the company had previously set up a compliance consultation desk, but when it was reported that a large number of complaints had been filed against my son, Mr. Johns was asked to conduct an internal investigation. I've heard so many stories about how he often curses at people for not being able to do it, and I can't believe he was looking down on people like that, even outside. I've already completed the formalities of selling this house, so please move out by the end of this week.
It's a lie, isn't it?
I'm tired of living with you people who are bothering me. Emma, you don't have a part-time job anymore, right? Why do I have to do housework for people like shopping, lunch, and etc.? You pretend to work part-time and hang out with your friends, but when you come home from your part-time job, you're carrying your shopping bags. I thought it was suspicious because there was a smell of alcohol in the house, so I followed her a few times and found out that was what happened. Everything had become so ridiculous that I felt like they would be here forever if this house is here. I've decided to sell it, so that's it. Mr. Johns, thank you for coming all the way today.
"No, it was also my fault not to supervise Lucas well."
I think I was being naive. It's too late, but my sons, I don't have any intention of reaching out to you in the future.
"Hey, Mom."
I don't have anything else to talk to you about, so quickly pack up your things and leave. When I told them all to go, everyone was looking down. This was something they had never imagined until this morning. I guess they're in such panic in their head right now, but I don't know anything about it. After that, I left home and moved into a new home, but I didn't tell my eldest son's family where I lived. My eldest son also lost his job. The family seemed to have stayed there for a while, but they got an eviction order from the court and were kicked out. Currently, there are 3 of them living in a small apartment, but the eldest son, who is in his mid-40s and is just in existence, is having a hard time finding a next job. My grandson seems to have a bad attitude during interviews, and he hasn't been able to get a job either. It seems like they're both working part-time. His wife is also working part-time every day. All 3 of them spend quite a lot, so I'm not sure how they can repay. I have received many calls asking for help and asking for assistance, but I am living a carefree life by myself. I get many ideas for work when I am alone. I'm already 70 years old, but I still feel like I'm still 70 years old, so I don't want to be left behind by the current era. I also want to listen to the opinions of young people and use them to help others. I will continue to do my best.